Okay. Take
We
it
are
away,
live?
Sh0ppo.
Yeah, perfect. Good evening, everybody. Sorry about the delay.
All on me, all my fault.
Nevertheless, welcome back to the castle. My name is Sh0ppo. I'm here with the one and only Ivory Knight. How's it going, man?
It's going good except for all those technical difficulties that I hope nobody will ever see.
Let me just check if I can hear you. I think I can hear you, though.
I think you can hear me. I think we're coming in now.
I think, but it sounds a little strange, though.
A little strange.
Yeah, like you got an echo on it.
Uh-oh. Oh, yes, yes. Okay, I should have an echo. Now I should have no echo. There we go.
Oh,
The
perfect.
little fix up
Crisp,
there.
crisp, very crisp. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's get back to it. The latest DevDiary number 17 already is about settlements and province features. Very
This...
basic, very like elementary kind of thing. Ivory, you wanted to do a summary
I
on it,
did. I
right?
said I was going to
It's
take
your
over the
turn.
summary.
Yeah.
So, as you said, it's very basic, very simple. Basically, the Dev Diary is about what is inside of a province. So, in a province, we have one main local center, this town, and in this province, you're going to have 5 to 6 settlements. It varies per province, and it's actually somewhat randomly generated how many a province might get. So, every game you play might have different settlement counts for your province. But every province will always have at least one town. So what are these settlements, though? Well, the settlements, there are 4 different types. We have villages. We got crop farms to produce food. We got religious settlements, which kind of give you your religious piety and books and things like this. And we also have castles. And right here, you can see I'm showing up one of the castles that we can see in game. They're here. The castles kind of provide a zone of control, apparently the devs have mentioned. And they also may provide some bonuses for recruitments. Additionally, these settlements, depending if they're near the coastline, will give you different kind of coastal bonuses or change. The devs weren't too clear about that, but from what I gathered from the forum, at least the Dev Diary itself, is that of the settlement types, the villages, crop farms, religious settlements, and castles, if it's near the water, it has something special to it.
Yeah, and you definitely need the coastal buildings or villages for, yeah, like ships and harbors and stuff. Very important.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
The last other thing, or the next thing, was that they mentioned about province features. And province features are, well, I think it's a poor word. I think they should have just called it resources, because that's kind of what they seem to be. So, for example, here we have what the main resources in this province are. We have sand or salt, maybe, or in marble, horse, brick, something else, and mountain. And all these can be developed to give you kind of tradable resources that we see on the bottom here. These resources are also kind of randomly generated, so each province might have a different set of them. But it's not so random. So, like, for example, if you have a province in the desert, you're not going to get, like, a forest resource on that province.
Or camels in Sweden, like they told.
Exactly.
That's not gonna happen.
That was more or less the Dev Diary. But then they spoiled us with that. Or is there anything you want to add, Sh0ppo? Anything critical I might miss?
Yeah, I think, yeah, basically that's it. They digged into it a little bit, like different strategies, that it's very important. I mean, it's a core of the game, right? And from the resources, you're able to set up buildings, do upgrades, get better building, get better weapons. So although it seems very easy, it's really crucial for the game and your whole development, military, the economy. Yeah, everything depends on the provinces.
Of course, the settlements in the province kind of represent, and the resources represent the backbone to whatever kingdom you're creating and the strengths that a kingdom will have.
I mean, they mentioned a little detail. So to start into the discussion here, that, and I really like that one. So if you have like vine in the province, there will be vineyards showing up on the map in that very province. So it adapts to the features of this very province, and it's not always grain fields.
Okay, so you actually get visual representations of those
Yes.
resources in the
Yes.
province.
And I think they had kind of the same stuff with mines. I mean, a mine is a mine. As I got it, they don't change the looks. They just add something to it, maybe an icon, or I don't know. I'm not. I think it's not really clear in the Dev Diary. So maybe you have a gold mine or you have an iron mine, silver. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, but asking right here, did they? I can't recall. I mean, it's not in the Dev Diary, but did they tell it in the stream? Like the exotic goods. I think there wasn't. Brad was talking about Ember, but anything else?
I don't know if they distinguish kind of the resources goods from exotic goods in any meaningful way, other than I'm guessing the amount of times you might find it in the world map. So I don't think like it's its own specific like fancy good or resource. I think it's like, oh, there's a resource on the map. It's amber. It might be rare, so there might be only a couple spots on the map.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe what they're going with. But you're right, it wasn't really specified in any way. Because in contrast to Knights of Honor 1, where you have 2 tiers of goods, or two tiers of trade goods. You have like kind of regular trade goods, and then you had these exotic trade goods that you had to only order through your ports.
Yeah. I mean, you had like the ones you can produce on your own.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of trade with other kingdoms. And yeah, exotic goods, that's actually true. Exotic goods would be something for maybe a merchant Dev Diary. We already had a merchant Dev Diary, but still the exotic goods are
But that was
pure
a
trading goods.
really good point to bring up, though. That it doesn't seem like we're being presented like there's kind of a multiple tier of trade goods, and that all the trade goods are kind of just either your province has that trade good or doesn't, and that's that.
Yeah.
And you can trade the goods amongst the other countries and things like this. I guess I can pop up my own question. So this was in the forums that I mentioned. I asked very quickly that they kind of asked it to us, and I gave them my feelings on it. And I want to know what your feelings are, Sh0ppo, and if anybody else is listening, what their feelings are on this as well. So as I mentioned, the settlements themselves are randomly generated. So how many settlements are in a province, and also what kind of settlements are in that province. And that's randomly generated throughout the map. And I was thinking, that's nice, and I love the gameplay that comes out of that. It's refreshing, and I think that's kind of how the spirit of Knights of Honor, because that's how it was in Knights of Honor 1, and that was nice. It was interesting to start up your country and be like, oh geez, I actually don't have that many settlements, or oh nice, I have a bunch of settlements now. And it was a fun part of the gameplay. And it changed where you kind of focused building improvements and things like this. But I suggest that, or they suggested, well, how do you feel about fixing it at some places? And I think maybe, but what I would like to see is a historical fix. So some person, just get the job for like 2 days, go through all the provinces in Europe, kind of fix the settlements to where they might have been like historically, and kind of give all of Europe a somewhat of a fixed settlement setup, and have that as like a historical toggle that you would have to set to like start your game if you want that setting, you know.
But okay, so what's the question? Like the feelings about the randomization of the settlements?
So the question they asked was, your feelings about the randomizations, and then my response was, I think the randomizations is great. I think it's in the spirit of the game, but I think for maybe balancing in multiplayer, but also for being more immersive, you should have a toggle that kind of has just one set of settlements that is close to some kind of historical
Okay.
feel.
Okay. Oh, Beldrith is in the chat. Hey, Beldrith, how's it going?
Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the discussion.
No worries that you're late. The gameplay part is actually where we it's coming at maybe 9:30. Yeah, but back to your question. I like the randomization. Like they said, okay, Venice has to be on a coast, which is good. Vienna has to be on a larger river, so that's fixed. And the kind of stuff that you don't have, forests in the Sahara, so that's mandatory. But I like the randomization because nothing is more boring than going into a kind of sandbox game or endless game, more or less, and it's always the same map over and over again. So randomization makes it interesting, makes it interesting for multiplayer, and makes it interesting for replaying the game over and over again. So I'm totally happy with that.
I see your point, and I agree with everything you've said. But I just think there should be a toggle, like a toggle that if you so desire, you can have
like for the game settings, right?
In the game settings, like when you start the game, it's like randomized settlements, and that should always be the main first one. Like that should be like already set. Mm-hmm. But then there's like a toggle for non-randomized, and then you can click that if you want, or it says historical, right? So then
that would be crazy, like a setting for historically accurate.
Yeah, and I see your point on multiplayer. That might even make it more juicier to have randomized settlements. But I think when you get to like really competitive play, it's not interesting to watch two pros go at it and have basically one pro lose because he just had bad random rolls of settlement production, right? Whereas if you have historical setting, you could find, say, two countries in the world that more or less always play the same way because they have the same type of settlement structure, and then you can put two pros and they can compete in a multiplayer fashion, and that creates a more kind of fair playing ground, you can say, for multiplayer, for competitive multiplayer. For casual multiplayer, you're totally right. I think randomize is better.
Yeah. Okay, Beldrith is like, I think we need many options when we are starting the game. So like for the game setting, I think he's talking about including your idea yesterday, Ivory. Having classic vision and your idea vision options. Yeah.
Are you talking about my line of sight vision idea, or are you referring to what we were just talking about right now with the settlement randomization? Yes. So he's talking about this crazy other idea I had. I can probably find it very quickly. If you just give me a second, I can pull up a nice picture. So can you distract everybody?
Yeah, like in general, I know from other dev diaries that I was like, I want to do it all in the settings of the game. I want to adjust this. I want to adjust that. I want to adjust maybe how hard will the AI get? How will the rebels act? Will they cross borders? Will they not cross borders? Or will only famous rebels cross borders? We talked about that in the Rebels Dev Diary. But for like personally, like very personally, okay, that's just my opinion here. I wouldn't miss a thing if we just dive into the game and it's randomized like all the time.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. I totally get if you say, okay, I want to have it historically accurate. I don't know for the devs how complicated it will be to find out all of this information.
I don't think they have to make it dead accurate to like to impress history buffs.
I think
it
that's
just
impossible,
needs to be set more or less and feel okay. You know. This was the idea that Beldrith was referring to, the idea that I came up with, and I'm trying to push this on the devs, so I'm pushing it here as well.
I saw it, yeah.
It's this line of sight idea. So in the provinces, and I'll show the gameplay of where I kind of noticed this and why this is a big deal for me. But so here we see the province of Belgrade, we'll just call it, because that's the town. And more or less, you have the vision that's everything underneath this river, and right at this borderline, and I'm guessing this dotted line is connected to another province that's in your kingdom, but more or less this province is defined by something like that, and you can see everything in that completely. You have this pure vision, like godlike, but only within that exact province border, and I think that's kind of boring. And I think you can get some interesting gameplay if you actually include real line of sight. And so, where would this real, true line of sight come from? Well, it comes from your settlements, your main town, and your armies, of course. So here, I've just drawn very roughly some black circles, which kind of represent what you would see in your province. And as you can see, it covers most of the province already, as it would already have done in what the version of the game that we saw. But there are some noticeable differences. One is that here we can see almost into the enemy province, and that's because we have this castle that's very close to the border. Whereas right near Belgrade, we actually have this very almost worrisome dead zone, where there's this line of sight blocker such as trees that blocks Belgrade's vision from what's in the province adjacent to it. So I put this like green square to like show like an enemy army parked here. Because in theory they could, because you have no line of sight there. So enemy army could park there, wait, do some diplomacy, and then also do a very quick spring attack onto Belgrade. And so that would be like, say, unadvantageous for us if we own this province. But on the flip side, we have this castle on the west of Belgrade province. So what if an army tried to attack us from the west? Well, from the west, because we have this kind of early warning province, we would see an army approaching from the west very quickly. And so we'd have kind of more time to respond and bring an army from another part of our kingdom to defend. So I think it adds just a nice, cool dynamic where a human player can try to, in a sense, abuse vision to try and get just a little more edge in the game. And I think in multiplayer that's even more fun, because think about it, right? Like, if I just parked my army behind somewhere and I was like, dude, you might want to consider something in the diplomacy, and then I like attack him and then my army's like 3 seconds away to just striking his capital or something, that makes for fun stuff.
Yeah. But I get it. I would like both options. The one thing I really didn't like from the first game is if you have your marshal right next to the border, you couldn't see into the foreign province, which didn't really make sense.
And like if this would kind of fix that, right? Because your marshal would have a line of sight. If you had
him camping in a fortified camp, and they're shooting arrows at the marshal, as soon as the enemy marshal crosses the border, you're not able to shoot at him anymore. So that was kind of annoying. I liked it. That was very typical for Knights of Honor to just see your provinces. But at that point, that didn't make sense at all to me.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well, if you were manually trying to click an enemy, or there was something buggy about that. I can't remember exactly what, but there was something there. That if the enemy crossed the border and they would kind of lose track of them, and your AI pathing wouldn't keep tracking them anymore.
No,
so
I thought
stop running.
Like if you told him to directly attack the marshal, he would follow him. He would follow him even across the border, although he couldn't see him anymore. He would still do that, but it was the thing with the fortified camp that he wouldn't shoot arrows at. Yeah, because he didn't see him anymore. Yeah, that was kind of strange. Let's check back what Beldrith is writing. He says, I personally would toggle this option on. By the way, I personally wouldn't toggle this option on by the way, since I want a similar game to KOH, as much as possible, but having it as a option would make more people happy, so it is good. Even if
I think it should be base game. But Beldrith, his last comment here, I think makes a good point that even if they don't want to do the whole line of sight with the settlements, a good compromise, and I'm willing to compromise all the time, is to just maybe have armies have line of sight. And
yeah, I'd agree with that.
That's not a bad idea either.
That would make sense, totally.
Which issue was that?
Issue. Yeah, I think the keeping track of the enemy marshal if he crosses the border. I think he's referring to that.
is there anything else we should touch on the Dev Diary before we wrap up and look at the gameplay footage?
I just want to get into the gameplay.
let's do it.
I can't wait for the gameplay. No, I think we got everything covered.
It's okay.
Okay, maybe a little detail. The thing with, we talked about the vineyards. I mean, if you're maybe it's good. Okay, that's maybe not bad for getting the difference between province features and the goods and settlements, or the borders between them. So, for example, they told in a Dev Diary, if you could switch, show it on screen, it's right below the screenshot with the castle near Lyon. They told, for example, herb gardening. If you have this province feature, which makes it possible to grow herbs in this province, then on the world map you could see some herbalist shacks like show up as settlements. Yeah,
you mentioned this already.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Okay, I think let's get to the gameplay footage.